I'm going to give you a roadmap and I'm going to hand you from A to Z what to do. Now, if you decide to step out and go in your own direction, it's like going on a road trip without navigation. You might hit it, you might not. But if you just follow the steps that I've taken over the last 34 years, it's not going to fail you.
All of this education means nothing if you don't do anything with it, because it instead turns from education to entertainment. It's your choice as to whether or not you want to be entertained by this or you want it to add tangible value to your life.
All you can control is your actions. You cannot control the results. You can only control your actions. So people are scared of failing. But to me, you fail if you never try.
How do you actually get started in real estate investing in the first place?
No one coached me or anything, right? So my grandfather owned a 6-unit apartment building. He came here from Europe, was a furrier, worked 3 jobs, busted his butt, had nothing. And I always loved the fact I would walk with him and he would go collect rent from 6 apartments. And that's how I thought as real estate. That's all I knew about it. So when I was younger, right, I had the opportunity. I was always looking at real estate. At 17, I went to a Carlton Sheets event. Right, that was my first intro to real estate. Well, I found the property and I had credit cards at 18. So I took 3 credit cards and I got an FHA loan with 3 credit cards and I put 3% down and got a 6% sales concession. So I actually bought a condo as a rental, my first deal. I wound up going to the Navy at 19 years old. So I was making over $600 positive cash flow rent on the condo. I went to the Navy, I was making $248 every 2 weeks in the Navy. So that was my first deal. Then getting out of boot camp, I went to hospital corps school. I was at the time not even 20 years old, so I couldn't go out drinking. All these guys were going out drinking. I had all these checks because I couldn't cash them. All I was doing was working out and going to Taco Bell. That was my Navy. So I had my checks of $248 every 2 weeks since boot camp. I had my rent coming in. I had nothing to do with the money. So when people needed money, I started lending it out there. So I got my first condo that way. Then I came out of the Navy, went back into the mortgage business before I became a police officer, right? In the mortgage business, I was just getting deals. People coming to me with deals, and I knew people in the mortgage business. I was raising money at that point. I was starting to buy the deals. I was flipping them. So I went into the police department. I was flipping more. I was making the police department top pay. Well, I started $28,000 in New York as a cop. I was flipping, I told you, 30 to 50, no less than 30, but 50, most of the time 50 plus properties. I was making 50 to 80,000 per property. I was only making 28,000 as a cop. I was making so much money flipping properties. That's why after 9/11 happened, I got out of the police department. I got through a whole thing where they investigated me because I was making so much money. They thought I was on the take. Like, how are you living in New York with a wife and a kid, 2 kids, in a 2-family house with 2 beautiful cars, and your wife doesn't work? And they don't understand. They thought I was stealing properties from people as a cop to sell them. It was just, the stories can go endless. It's funny how it went. But that's how I went. So I left the police department and I just went hardcore into real estate. I took 6 years. I went to build an online marketing company because I like building companies. Took that company to an Inc. 500 company, still doing real estate, left in 2012 and just put my head down and went crazy from 2012 on as well.
It all changed in terms of your active income flipping properties. In what year?
So 2006. So you're talking about now 18, 19 years. 2006, it really changed. That's where it really changed.
Are you still actually doing specific like active transactions every once in a while?
Yeah, I probably do. I mean, like one-off type deals, I probably do 10, 15 a year in that range. Right? I'm always rolling with at least 1 or 2. But I'm very, very specific. So I'm very strict about saying no. And people know I say no to wholesalers. Most wholesalers I don't even look at. But I say no or yes very quick. Like, I don't chase a deal. I don't try to make a square peg fit in a round hole ever. If it's not a deal, it's not a deal.
You're talking about shifting your focus to the passive side, okay? Which should be every real estate investor's goal from the very beginning, because active income is what have you done for me lately?
And I was going to say, ask every single person, student, why they got into business. Because the first thing I ask every person I used to mentor is, why are you in this business? And see if their vision, their actions, and their vision are like a chiropractor. See if they align like this. What you're going to see is that their vision is they want to do what they want to do, when they want to do it, with whom they want to do it. But their actions are kind of going like this. So all they did is create a higher paying job for themselves. It's really all they did. And I know because I was there, I was doing the same thing. And every once in a while, I have to realign myself. I keep going like this. I got to bring back, it's not easy. We have the entrepreneur's curse. But when you talk about your vision, Like, why are you in this business?
For me, I'm in this business for two reasons. One, because the Lord has put me in a position where He's filled my head with all of this knowledge, and I'm passionate about it, and I can execute on it, and it really feels like it's my calling, not just my passion. So those two things are aligned. And second, to provide for my family and myself, right? And part of providing for my family and myself is not working 80 hours a week.
And for me, right, I was working 80 to 100 hours a week when I was flipping. I was very transactional. I was working more there than I was working any job. Making a lot of money. I was making multiple 7 figures a year, but I was working my butt off. So it almost caused me to get a divorce and not be there for my kids, be a terrible father. So that was completely opposite of when my mentor asked me why I'm doing what I'm doing, why I'm in this business. It was my vision. My vision was to do what I want, when I wanted, with whom I wanted. Yeah. But I wasn't doing it. All I was doing is chasing a higher paying job with very transactional. So all your wholesalers, right, and all your fix and flippers, all they are is transactional, because you could have a great month, but what happens today? To go from hero to zero, you're back to zero. You have no deals. You have to start all over again. And if you don't do any deals, you make no money. So that doesn't resonate with me anymore.
It doesn't resonate with us anymore either. And one thing that we have tried to stress is you don't need a big team. If you do want to do more volume of transaction, like what is the question we ask is, what can you outsource to technology?
Right.
So that's what we focus on with some artificial intelligence, but not in the way that most people try to promote it. We just try to minimally. We're not saying it's the end all be all. This business will always be a person to person business.
Sure.
Lots of conversations about that, but that's the active side, the goal being the passive side. And you've already gone through the trenches, as it were, and forged the path uphill.
When I first started this business, I was chasing money. I thought growing up, not a rags to riches story, but we didn't grow up very well, like very wealthy, right? I was kind of fending for myself the time I was a teenager. And I was to the point of being embarrassed. And I always thought when I was a kid, I thought one day when I get older, I'm going to be rich, I'm going to be happy. I associated rich with happiness. And I chased that so hard. I had a very tough upbringing, right? With my parents, I had a very tough, kicked out of the house at 18 years old, went to the military, had to take care of myself, got married young, had a kid. And I always struggled, worked multiple jobs, always provided. But I always said, I'm going to give my family a better life. And to me, that better life always had to base it around, money, right? To me, that was success, right? But really, I was just masking it. And for so many years, I was chasing that. I was doing 30 to 50 flips every single year, 30 to 50 flips minimum. My flips netted no less than $50,000, generally 80,000 to 6 figures. So just figure out the numbers. It was multiple 7 figures a year. And if it was under $50,000, I would wholesale it. But I never really built anything. I never built anything passive. To the point, I still remember, I talk about in my book that I wrote, Passive to Prosperous. Remember, like it was yesterday, we would go out with friends and I was never really present. I was there, but I was never present. And it came down to the point where I wound up missing my daughter's birthday party because I was at an event. And I was at the dinner on a Sunday night. I still remember like it was yesterday. And we were with 3 other couples, and we got there at 6 o'clock at night on Sunday night. At 8:30, I'm outside talking about a closing that's falling apart this week. I'm on the phone with the realtors. I'm on the phone with the buyer. I'm on the phone with the attorney. I'm trying to get this deal closed. At 8:30 at night, my wife walks out of the restaurant, throws the food she has it wrapped up. She goes, "Here's your expletive dinner, choke on it." We go home, and now I'm seeing red. Because I'm busting my butt to provide for you and the kids, to give you everything you want. You have this beautiful house on a golf course. You have 2 gorgeous cars. You have jewelry. You have vacations. You have all this stuff. And she started yelling at me. She goes, "We didn't want any of this. It's all you. You're just like your father. You're a terrible father. You're a terrible husband." Now I'm seeing red, right? I didn't internalize this. And I'm like, oh my God, I crushed to my knees and I started crying to myself. And I'm like, how could I do this? How could I be everything I never wanted to be? I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was a great husband. I was providing. I thought I was a great father. I was providing, but I wasn't really a great husband or father. I was never really there for them. And I didn't know what else to do. I'm getting goosebumps talking about this right now. And I didn't know what else to do. And I'm like, when you can make $80,000 to $100,000 on a flip, it's a lot more sexy than making $600 to $800 on a rental property. And I was like, how do I do this? All I know how to really do is flip properties and make a lot of money. Rentals didn't excite me. I didn't care about $4, $5, $6, $800 or whatever it might be. That didn't excite me. But when you start to build the passive income up and you see those $600, $800 a month, multiple times for really not having to do much, it got pretty sexy. And then the rental game, it's more of an active passive income, but it creates wealth. It creates growth. There's so much tax benefits. There's so much wealth it creates legacy wealth. And you go through the motions. You learn where you want to do rentals, what type of tenants you want to work with, what areas you want to be in, what team you put in place. So there's still a little more active than just passive. And what happened is I was raising a lot of private capital at the time. And a lot of people that were giving me private money to buy, rehab, refinance these rentals, I was paying them back, and they started saying to me, hey, can you provide us deals? We want to build legacy for ourselves too. I have a lot of dentists, physical therapists, chiropractors, business owners that come to me. So that were my private lenders. They're like, we want to build legacy as well. We want to build these properties for ourselves. Well, then I started doing the same thing. I'm finding these properties from asset managers or from wholesalers or from property managers with portfolios, and I'm buying them in bulk. And now I'm just fixing them up and selling them to investors, to turnkey investors. But it was still transactional, right? I'm making $30,000, $40,000 a deal. I'm doing a bunch of them. It still became transactional. So I got to the point where I started working with them, and I said, listen, you have $100,000 and you're going to buy a property for me. So let's say $100,000. I said, what, instead of you buying this property for cash for $100,000, why don't we do that? Why don't we start working this way? I'll hold the note for you and I'll build your legacy. If you really want to build something, I'll build something for you. And I said, put 30% down, or $20,000 at the time, because properties were cheaper then. Put 30% down and I'll hold the note for the rest. I'll give you a 30-year amortization, better than you're probably going to get from the banks, with a 10-year balloon and a 3-year prepay. I said, instead of paying $100,000 cash for one property, you can now buy 3 properties, and I build you a net worth of $300,000 once they're paid off. Plus you get all the tax advantages, the cash flow, the depreciation, the appreciation, the rental increases, the debt reduction. And I started going through that. And I almost became I can't really call myself a wealth advisor because I'm not a licensed wealth advisor, but I really became their family's wealth advisor. And over time, I was closing so many deals. And to this day, right now, I have over 400 seller finance notes for myself. I would have a lot more, but the rates came down. People paid me off. So, but those seller finance notes, once you get to that point, it's very front loaded in active work. Once you create that seller finance note, I don't do anything. I literally could shut my computer, travel the world, and do nothing. That's the most passive investment you ever do. So the way I set them up is I get a property in a great emerging market. I fully rehab them, high-end rehab, like I would flip them. I get them fully managed, not by myself, by a third-party property manager. They get it rented. I sell them to an investor. They put 30% down, okay, and have them professionally serviced by a licensed third-party servicing company. And I have attorneys and bookkeepers in place. I literally am front-loaded, and then I get to go like this. The properties I keep for myself is what I call legacy properties. Those are properties that don't fit that seller finance component for investors. But I've been able to do this, and I can provide my investors now, my turnkey buyers, I could provide them easily 100 to 300 properties a year without much of a headache for myself. You still have some upfront. But once I create that seller finance note for them, I now have 5 exit strategies. And that seller finance note, the way I do it, is like an ATM card. It's the gold in the industry. And I teach that. That's what I teach in my seller finance webinars. I teach the 5 strategies, how to set them properly. Some of the strategies, you can use your note to sell them. You could sell payments. You could borrow against your note. You can get leverage from local banks on your note. There's so many options you have with that note. The easiest thing in this industry is to sell a note or borrow against the note. Why? Is because you got a great property in an emerging market with a lot of jobs that's fully rehabbed, fully rented, fully managed with equity, and borrower's skin in the game. What's the worst that could happen? All right. What's the worst that could happen? I always ask that to people and they always get it wrong. So I set this up front loaded. I'm very laser focused and very intentional on my vision. I keep talking about vision because my vision says I want to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, with whom I want to do it with. And over the last 17 years, I've been able to change my legacy and become an amazing father, an amazing husband, an amazing grandfather now to 2 grandsons, an amazing coach, to people I get to coach, a speaker, right? I'm very involved with abundant organizations. I'm part of some amazing organizations that I get to be part of. Whenever I do my trainings, whenever I do my book sales, whenever I do my speaking events, anything I'm paid for ancillary goes into those organizations, right? And it allows me to do a couple things. One is I get to love on others, help others, make money in doing so I can help others even more.
That's awesome. I mean, the vision of your why is like right in front of you every day. That's something that we talk about with Real Estate Investing Made Easy. That's something we try and focus on too. In what I'm wearing right now is my Lazarus Property Group shirt for my real estate investing company. And then our goal is to take properties and resurrect them from the dead, as it were. And what you were saying there, our goal is much in alignment with what yours is in terms of vision. But at the same time, there are some differences, there are some nuances, but we keep it in front of us all the time. And sometimes that sounds like platitudes to people who are listening to it. Well, they ask the questions like, well, how do I get from point A to point B? Well, it does start with that because that's foundational, and don't lose sight of that, because all of the storms that continue to come, especially because you need to do active to create the passive, then you're going to get discouraged and you're just going to ultimately fail. But when you do fail, if your vision is in front of you, it gives you the motivation to keep going. So I love that. And you did talk about kind of what you do in terms of emerging markets. I would love to learn a little bit more. I'm sure the audience would too, about for you, what is an emerging market? And I know you gave kind of a brief overview of what that was, but how do you put a team in place in those emerging markets that you're finding these deals? And then we'll get into after that, like, how do you find the deals in the first place? So I guess first is, like, what is your definition, in short, of an emerging market that other people could take and say, I want to do that same thing and replicate it?
Great stuff. And that's really important to understand. One of the first things you need to know is what market you want to be in, right? There's so many markets in the United States or internationally, right? So what I look for in a market is, because I want the rent roll to match what my investors want in a return, I look for what markets can provide that. I like to be in that 1% rent to value ratio. I like to have jobs in an area. So I want to make sure there's good quality jobs where people can actually there's affordable housing where they can afford the rents in the area, right? So I always say, like, for instance, I go really deep into this, but a real for instance is, if there's an Amazon plant that opens up, distribution plant, and a couple or roommates can work there and pay your rent, right? Rent is, they have to make 3 times what the rent is. If they can afford that rent, it's probably going to be a check mark right there. Okay, that's one thing, one check mark. I'm going to look for low crime, low taxes. When I say low taxes, no more than 2% of the property value. So the property is $100,000, no more than $2,000 a year in taxes, right? So that knocks out your Californias, your New York, your New Jerseys, those type of areas. Quick to evict, quick to foreclose. I want those markets. I want to be at least 10,000 people in the local area, and 45 minutes away, I want to be from the metro area, and I want to have at least 100,000 people. I want to be in a B2C plus area, right? So blue to white collar area. And I want that rent roll, like I said, to be that 1% rent to value ratio. I verge, but I mostly love single family ranches. That's my favorite. So I like infrastructure in place. I like jobs in place. I like growth, right? I like entertainment. That's really what I look for in an emerging market. And I meet with Economic Development Corp, Chamber of Commerce. If you do your research on an area and you kind of look at the things I just gave you, you can just pinpoint on a map right now certain areas that fit. Properties that are renting for $1,500 a month, I want the value to be about $150,000. Right. It could be 130, it could be 160, but and I'm going to bring up your New Yorks, your Californias, right? Your rent might be $3,000 a month, but your property value is $1 million. It's just not going to work. It's not going to work for what I do. So I get it all the time. I get people ask me all the time, well, can you do it with this deal, or can you do it with this deal? And I'm like, I basically just say to them, listen, I'm giving you, when I do my webinars and when I do my online trainings or my live events, I'm going to give you a roadmap, and I'm going to hand you from A to Z what to do. Now, if you decide to step out and go in your own direction, it's like going on a road trip without navigation. You might hit it, you might not. But if you just follow the steps that I've taken over the last 34 years, it's not going to fail you. It might be a little tougher because it's not going to be as easy as just, we talked about it in the past. We said, people are doing deals now just to do deals. They think they're successful doing deals. And I see it all the time. And they come to me all the time to help fix their mess that they got themselves into. And sometimes I can. Sometimes we just have to take the loss and tell them, listen, you got to sell this off. Your opportunity costs are greater. Just sell it, take the loss, and go on to your next deal. But if you just look and you say, okay, this is what I want, it has to fit, check mark, check mark, check mark, check mark, boom, it's a deal. If it misses a check mark, it might be a deal. There's some that you cannot, like the one you can't get away from is that 1% rent to value ratio. It will not work for what I do if you don't stay within that range. Right. Now, will it work for seller finance into an owner occupant? Possibly. But I don't look to seller finance to owner occupants because I don't want to deal with residential banking laws. I don't want to deal with Dodd-Frank, and I don't want to deal with CFPB. So why would I try to do that? Right? Stick to what works and you'll be successful.
Now, obviously, you have an in-depth training, October 15th, 7 p.m. Eastern, and there's a lot more questions of the how-to behind what you're saying, because this is a great overview. One of the questions is, well, how do you identify them? What tools are you using? How are you putting your team in place? Like, what people are you putting in place to make sure that this type of investing that you're doing passively remains passive?
Some of the most important people you're going to build in your team are your property managers, right? I'm going to talk about exactly what to do with your property managers to put them in place. And your property managers are going to lead you to multiple team members, right? Your realtors, your title companies, your inspectors, your project managers, and your property managers. So we're going to go through all of that on the webinar. I'm going to break it down. When you leave that webinar, you're literally going to be able to walk away without doing anything else if you want to, and be able to have enough information that you might be able to get started, right? A webinar is only a webinar. There's only so much I can do. When I teach this in person, it's 2 to 3 days for me to teach it because I break everything down. I literally go live on the spot, open my laptop and show you how I do it on the spot. So, but one of the most important things I'm going to talk to you about is what requirements you need on your team, right? What you need your property manager to do. And property manager is probably the most important. And I'm going to really dig that deep in an area. And once we put our team in place, I go out to those markets once in a while, maybe once every 3-4 months. I might be speaking in the area. I do it more as just, take the team out, let's go and bond a little bit. But once you get them in place, it's literally like rinse and repeat over and over again. Once they know exactly how you do your rehabs. Like if you would have walked through some of my rental properties, by the third one, you'd be so bored you wouldn't want to hang out with me anymore because they're all the same, right? It's a system, it's a process. So I believe in people, processes, and systems over and over and over again. Don't change things when they work, right? So I'm going to talk to you about that. I'm going to teach you a little bit about that, exactly what to do and how to put that team together. But we'll go deep into, property management, realtors, project managers, title companies, attorneys, inspectors, how to handle them, right? How to have deals coming to you, right? I'm going to get deep into I even do something where I used to, train people for, it was $1,000 for me to train you how to actually deal with asset managers, how to start bringing you deals. At my live event, I go live and actually open my laptop and pull thousands and thousands and thousands of potential property asset managers and even private lenders right on the spot. So I do it all the time because the difference with me and a lot of people is I'm in the business, right? I'm closing a few deals every single month for myself. We're selling off for ourselves. We're bringing in 2 to 4 deals a month for ourselves, our portfolio. We're probably selling anywhere from 150 to 200 to our turnkey investors every year. So we're very active in the business. We're not just teaching this, right? We don't just teach this. The reason we teach it is it's an abundance for me. If you know something so great and you don't share it with others, you're being selfish. So I want to truly help people. And it's funny I say this, but it just befuddles me, if I can use that word, that I show this to people. I give them the roadmap and I see them a year later at a speaking event I'm on stage doing. I'll be speaking this week coming up, but I'll see them at a speaking event that I'm doing, and they come up to me on a break and they still have the same questions, the same problems, and they still had the same inaction that they had last year. So I think professional event goers or whatever I think you had a name for them I heard once before, right?
Betty's and Workshop Willies.
I got to remember that. I love the Workshop Willies. And what was the other one?
Boot Camp Betty's.
Betty's. They show up every event. They're almost like a groupie of mine. They show up to every event. I give them the roadmap and they just don't take action. Is because they really just don't believe in themselves enough, right? They live in scarcity. They don't believe in investing any money in themselves, right? It's just, there's so many things. They don't bring any value.
What you just mentioned about those people who are taking the information, they invested in themselves because they showed up. It was some money, but also a lot of time. And then they didn't take action. That really hurts just somewhere deep inside me when I see somebody who I've shared information with that I know is valuable because I have the losses to prove it and I have the gains to prove it, whether that was a mistake I made or whether it was something I did that worked. And I realized that, wow, these individuals, of course, I would believe that yes, they can change with the proper motivation, with the proper circumstances. But at that moment, when you rediscover those people in your workshop that were there a year ago that didn't do anything, it's because you're just so entertaining. And it's not just you, they love to be entertained, which is a problem with this TikTok world.
Oh, I tell you.
I want to be entertained, and then once I'm done being entertained, I'm dreaming. And these are my dreams. But a dream is only going to stay a dream unless you wake up and take action. So we always say this at Real Estate Investing Made Easy. All of this education means nothing if you don't do anything with it because it instead turns from education to entertainment. It's your choice as to whether or not you want to be entertained by this or you want it to add tangible value to your life.
Agreed. I couldn't say it better myself. It's just a dream until you take action.
Right.
And to me, I always say no is just as good as a yes. The maybes, you'll always leave yourself with that thought, what could have been, right? What could have been? And that's the worst feeling in the world. And we get off topic, but that's kind of like they talk about fears in your life, right? I used to have 3 fears. One of them was snakes. I got over that at an event. I put an 80-pound rattlesnake on my neck and I got over that. My other fear is heights, which I won't get over because I have no care to get over that. But my biggest fear in life, I talk about this with my kids all the time because they've asked me. My fear in life is that one day I pass away and I left something on the table and I could have, should have, would have done it. It's so ingrained into me right now. That's why I'm so deep in like education. I'm so deep in trainings. I'm so deep in speaking. I'm so deep in the book sales. Is because every dollar that comes in, I put it to a greater purpose. And my wife once said to me, she goes, when do you think you'll be done? Like, when is done? I said, I can't be done. There's never going to be enough that I could do. There's so many organizations I want to help. There's so many people I want to help. That's why I'll never be done. And I can't understand that somebody who's done, right? Because there's so much greatness out there. If you don't live to your full potential, you're just leaving it on the table. All you can control is your actions. You cannot control the results. You can only control your actions. So people are scared of failing. But to me, you fail if you never try. That's to me, you fail. Because I'm going to keep screwing up. I'm going to keep getting hit in the gut and I'm going to keep coming back and learning from it. And that's why, I'm 34 years doing this. And I just want people to understand I'm 34. There's so much. You guys have a training program. There's so much out there right now that I didn't have when I came through this. And they didn't have computers when I came through, right? Think about it. I'm really dating myself at this point. 34 years, 1990 I started. They didn't have anything. They had 3 seminars I went to and I bought books and tapes. That was what I had. They didn't have all this media right now, all this instruction that people have. It's so easy to get right now. You just got to do your due diligence on who's doing what you want. And it's very easy. That's the other thing I say. Always trust and verify, even what I tell you. Don't believe what I tell you. Verify what I'm telling you. Look people up. Do your due diligence on everybody. And if you don't believe something, make them proof up. People should be able to proof up a little bit. And that's why when I do my live events, I open my laptop and I go right into my servicing accounts. I don't even know what I'm going to see in here because I don't know who's paying, who's not. I have a 400. I'm like, I'm just going to open it up and let's see what we see. And I have over 14 different accounts and I'll pull up one of them. And I say, I don't know how many are in this one. Let's pull it up. Because I want people to see that it's not about bragging. It's about, I want you to listen because I've given you something that I do. This is not a fly by night. It's not theory. This is something I do day in and day out. And I want to share it with you. And people are like, why would you share this with people? I said, because everybody needs to know this. Because it truly will change your life. And I live in abundance. I don't live in scarcity. Right? I will share everything I could possibly share with you if you're willing to take action on it.
Not to mention the fact that the upcoming training that is really an intensive October 15th is free, right?
Yeah.
admission, join, and not joining. I think you mentioned something about doing deals or not doing deals, and that an investor came to you with all of these deals that were just not performing for them. The opportunity cost of not actually like getting into those deals and just focusing on ones that work is less if you just let go of them, because then you can focus on deals and opportunities that work. The same thing is like the opportunity cost of not actually taking in this type of information that's really life-changing. It really is. It's life-changing, it's legacy-changing.
You know, it's funny, and we talk about this all the time with the marketing team, right? You do webinars like this, right? And I truly cannot stand free stuff. Like, even when people say to me, I'm not interested in it. I'm just not, right? Because if you don't value it, why would I? There's no value, right? So, but you put on this free webinar, and I said, I'm only going to do it. And I go on other people's webinars in the past just to see what they do, right? And I see what it's all about, right? And they say, well, you can't give too much. I said, well, I'm going to give them enough that if they don't do anything else ever with me, they're going to have enough information to go out and do a deal, right? Because that's to me what abundance is, right? But you'll have 400 or 500 people register. You'll get 80 that show up. And then they show up and they're on their phones and they're on Facebook. And I'm like, I'm giving you what could change your life. I'm not saying it's guaranteed. If you take action and you learn it, I'm giving you what I'm doing. I have over 400 seller finance notes. There's people with maybe a lot more, there's people with less. But you got to remember, almost 400 plus seller finance notes, 431 to be exact as of today. Plus I own a rental portfolio. I don't owe any money on those. Those are all free and clear. My private lenders have gotten all their money back. Every dollar I get is pure passive profit for me right now. Infinite returns. So if you take 400 deals and you multiply it by only $600, and I get that every single month from the 1st to the 15th, without having to pick up a phone or open my laptop, do you think you might want to listen and learn this? Do you think it might benefit? Maybe if you got one golden nugget out of it, it may benefit you, maybe, but they don't take action. When you have somebody who's bringing this to you that really wants to help you and is doing this, now I'm in the business 34 years, I'm fast tracking you, and I'm doing a webinar for free. So not only is it free, it costs me money, right? Because I got to put together all the systems. I got to pay the marketing team. I got to pay the emails. I got to pay the social media. I got to pay the Zoom. I got to pay everything. It costs me money to actually put this on to help you. And people don't take it serious. It drives me absolutely insane. So I generally do not do things for free because I don't think people value us, right? And I value my time way too much. The only thing I have in life is time. And here's the other thing I learned a lot. If you give people stuff for free, you're being selfish because they'll quit on themselves when it gets tough. Right. If they invest in themselves, they won't quit on themselves, and now they're going to find their greatness.
I completely agree with that, coming from the background that I did working for, as I was actively investing, a separate education company that, you know, at a certain point, that's what I learned. I learned everything from the rehab systems to the marketing. Everything from data to deal is what I learned from them. And then over time, from implementing, adapted it and changed it to what works for us, and then discovered what doesn't work for us, and then open book shared. And that's what I really love about you, because what you're basically saying right now is, hey, everybody, come see my webinar. You know, Dan is going to take you from the webinar into his office behind the book and show you what he does step by step, so that if you do nothing else but show up and take notes, you can actually take action on that and it can change things for you. We love talking about that, but I have been so intrigued because this is what we're doing. We are taking properties, and then when we go to sell them to retail buyers, we can finance through a third party, our MLO, a note on the property for ourselves that's above and beyond any investment we put into it, so that we are cash flowing that, right, on the note side. So I'm super curious, just divulging everything you can. How do you pull your money out of a deal and stay in it for 30 years so quickly? Because you do this over and over again.
That's the magic. And that's really, I'm actually going to take on the webinar, I'm going to take a live deal that I recently did, and I'm going to break it down over 5 exit strategies where I could pull my money out. Really 4, the 5th one is a little different. How I could pull my money out of a deal. There's multitude of ways you could do it, right? So what I do is when I sell my properties, I take 30% down on a deal, and then I carve the note out. I'll carve a first and second. I'll sell the second, keep the first. I'll do a partial. I'll sell payments, enough payments to get all my money back plus a profit. I call it the triple play. I profit up front, I profit monthly and I profit at the end, right? But I get all my money back, all my private lenders' money back to pay them back. And I tell them generally they'll have the money back in 12 to 18 months or less. Most of the time it's in 3 to 4 months. I'll do hypothecation, which means to borrow against. And I'm going to show this to you in the webinar. I'll talk a little bit more about it as much as I could in the amount of time I have. I also get leverage from banks. I show people how they can potentially get leverage from their banks. That's something they have to do, but what type of leverage they can get on a note. So think about this. Once you create that seller finance note, you get all your money back. That note is like an ATM card. You have that note, and anytime you want, you can go out and get money on it. Literally within hours, you can go get money. And how do I find my buyers? I'm a content-rich guy, right? So I talk about how to provide content, how to do your due diligence, how to share that content with people, how to sit with people and educate them on how to create wealth, right? How to look at their pain points, right? I deal with a lot of for whatever reason, I get a lot of dentists. My biggest avatar is dentists. I have dentists, I have chiropractors, I have physical therapists. I have a lot of business owners. I have a lot of people with families. I don't generally deal with real estate investors selling my properties too much, right? Even when I raise private money, I talk about how to raise private money, where to raise private money, and who you raise it from, right? I raise my private money at 6 to 8% interest only for 3 to 5 years, no points. With that, you can do a lot, right? So then I talk about how to buy deals from asset managers. When you have asset managers sending you sometimes hundreds of deals at a time, that you can pick and choose what you want to buy, it's pretty impressive, right? So you commingle that with marketing that you guys teach, right? Your mailage, your text messaging, your ringless voicemails, your door knockers, your cold callers, your pay-per-click advertising, your sponsored ads on Meta. So however you guys are doing it, right? You're teaching that. I'm not teaching the marketing side. There's a lot of people that could teach that. I'm teaching something at a different level, and I'm letting you guys teach the marketing stuff. I'm going to teach how to deal direct with asset managers. So when you do that, right, and you go out and you do, just things like videos on the properties you're doing. I could do one video, walk one of my emerging markets, go through 5 of my properties. I won't have enough properties in the next year to supply my demand because everybody wants them. When you show them the quality work you do, everybody wants them. When you put together professional presentations and you send it to your buyers, potential buyers, everybody wants them, right? So when you look out for your buyers more than you look out for yourself, they keep coming back. Here's a hence, right? I always talk about this pre-COVID, 2019, because after COVID, the market went crazy and we sell a lot more. Pre-COVID, we sold 182 properties. We sold 182 properties to 18 investors. That's it, right? So that averages 10 per investor. My biggest investor was a dentist, bought 23 properties. My smallest bought 1, okay? So I like dealing with non-owner occupants. I like dealing with people that want to build rental portfolios. I don't want to sell 182 properties to 182 owners where the guy or the woman or couple comes through and they don't like the color of the kitchen cabinets. They don't like the floor. I don't do that. I don't deal with banks. You cannot buy my property with a mortgage company. You either buy it for cash or on seller financing. And I talk about why. Now you can do whatever you want afterwards. I talk about why. We'll talk about why that works, right? I don't have to because I have a demand for my properties. When you create a demand for your properties, you don't have to. I don't want to deal with banks doing appraisal. I want to deal with banks saying your property can't be worth more than you bought it for from the bank because it's not seasoned for a year. I don't need to deal with it because I get that question. Why would somebody that doesn't know, why would somebody buy from you with 30% down at this interest rate when they could just go to their bank? And I said, well, because I don't sell them if they go to their bank. It's either cash or seller financing. I never used to do seller financing. It was cash. And I had no problem selling like this. No problem selling cash because I'm dealing with accredited type investors. When I say investors, I mean people that make a good amount of money. How do I find them? I show that when I'm doing a live event, I actually open my laptop when I can do that. I actually show you how to find people that are accredited. Thousands within 5-10 minutes I can find for you. In any market, it doesn't matter what market you're in, I can find them. I can find business owners in any market within minutes. And I show you how to do that live. So can't really do that part on the webinar, but I'll talk about it. I'll give you a step-by-step how to do some of the stuff. But right. if I did it on a webinar, it would take me 2 days to do everything.
And then all they have to do is just follow the step-by-step to do it.
Exactly. You'll have enough info by being on the webinar to be able to put some steps into action and see some results.
at the end of this webinar, people will be able to, in your own words, they will be able to walk away and do what?
They will be able to figure out what an emerging market is, how to find their own emerging market, how to build a team in their emerging market, what are some of the options on a property, what type of properties they should look for, what the numbers should look like, and what their strategies potentially could be to get all their money back in 12 to 18 months and stay in the deal for 30 years passively. They're even going to learn about, I will even share with them step by step how to find asset managers. I won't be able to do it live with them unless it's on my live event. I will also show them who I use for my servicing, how they could service their notes where they're hands off. They don't have to worry about, how do I handle all the mortgage payments? How do I handle the interest? How do I handle the annual reserves? How do I handle the amortization? I'm going to give them that. So if they walk away and they set it up themselves, they could do it. Right? So I'm going to give them step by step what I do, and I'm going to show them a live deal with the contracts, with the HUD, so they know that I'm somebody they should listen to. I actually do deals.
At the end of it, this is how being a bank is different than being a landlord and why it's actually better. And not only better, what does that mean? It means it's easier. There's a lower barrier of entry. You just have to take the action steps to actually put that into place. One little thing for everybody watching is the private capital that we generate is usually the person selling their house. Okay, and I'm not talking about seller financing. We're on calls with dozens a week of people looking to sell their property. So as we talk about the equity in their property and we ask them, what are you going to do with this money? Is it just going to sit in a bank and lose value? Inflation's at 9%. Like your $100,000 is going to turn into $91,000 pretty dang quickly. So tell me, what are your plans? Are you going to buy a yacht? Are you going to go put it on black in Vegas? So when we have those types of conversations, we'll see whether or not they are potential private lenders. So we found a lot of private lenders from being just transparent with sellers, letting them know that as we buy cash, it's effectively cash, but we're leveraging other people's funds that are sitting in their bank accounts to transfer it to ours, so that through the relationships we'll be able to purchase properties quickly and close. And that's one thing. I'm sure you already know that and you've probably done that, but that's something I wanted to share, and I know you have a different process as well. So people should be excited to learn that. Why? Because it's going to make their lives easier. You're talking about being an entrepreneur there, those of you who are watching, and what that looks like for you in your mind. And then when you realize, I signed up so I could have time freedom and financial flexibility, and I wouldn't be a slave to a 9-to-5. You're still a slave to a 9-to-5 if it's your business and you're working 80 hours and you're not focused on passive because you're actively in your business. Like Michael Gerber said of the E-Myth, if your business requires your presence, you don't have a business, you just have a job.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, your job as the entrepreneur, your business doesn't pay you the same benefits as a 9-to-5 did before you quit.
Right.
Okay. The path to financial freedom, as people say, is really more about financial flexibility depending on your lifestyle. And it is, for sure, everything we teach here, but I can tell you that what Dan is going to bring to you is going to absolutely turn what you thought you should be doing upside down.
Awesome, Christian. It's a great time. I appreciate you.